Hello and welcome to Awakened with Lea, the next chapter. I'm your host, Lea, and this show is about bringing to the forefront diverse guests who have experienced adversity and major or minor transitions in life so that we can provide our viewers with courage, confidence, and tangible tools to navigate any challenge in life with the lived experience and wisdom of our guests. I am excited to introduce everyone today, all the way from Sweden, Clarissa Kristjansson, author of international bestseller book, The Mindful Menopause, host of Thriving Through Menopause, and a keynote speaker. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Clarissa.
Thank you for having me, Lea. I'm so delighted to be here.
It's our pleasure. And, you're speaking with us about your experience with menopause and anxiety. And typically, a lot of people associate menopause with hot flashes. And we don't hear so much about the anxiety associated with menopause. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your wisdom around that and your experience.
That's very truly what you said. I think we don't expect to experience high degrees of anxiety, and we are unprepared for how much they can rock our world. And certainly that's what happened to me.
Absolutely. Can you share some earlier experiences that shaped who you are today?
Before I started working as a menopause coach and author speaker, I was in corporate life. I was a senior corporate leader. I worked in Asia Pacific and in Europe. And I was a very busy mom, single mom, worked long hours, was just like a lot of women out there, on a treadmill. And to be fair, when I got to my mid-40s, I became single. I wasn't expecting to be single. And I moved to Australia. It was a bit crazy thing to do, just pack up your 7-year-old and dog and move to the other side of the world from the UK. And that's really where I think my journey with anxiety started. And at that time, I didn't know that I was also at the start of my menopause.
What did you learn that helped you move forward?
I think that the first thing really was to address the anxiety attacks that I was having. I was really rocked by them. And I had to begin a journey to take control. And, I can remember crying to a friend and said, I can't cope. I can't cope with this job. I just changed jobs. And I thought, where am I going to go? How am I going to go forward from here? And that was the start of actually beginning to find steps forward. And that started with mindfulness for me.
And our beliefs create our reality. So what would you say, what beliefs did you have to shift to go from challenge to opportunity?
The first thing I had to learn to shift was to be present. I was a person who was the world's multitasker. And my head was everywhere, my thoughts were everywhere, and those thoughts became more thoughts until my reality was distorted. As you said, beliefs become reality, and they were very distorted. And I had to be able to come into the here and now, to stop and to be able to say, actually, I'm okay, and I'm here. And if I'm not feeling too great, that's also okay. And that was the start of being able to manage all the craziness in my mind.
Right. So how is your anxiety showing up for you?
It showed up in a number of ways. The first way was that I was just what I would call generalized anxiety disorder, where I was anxious about everything. Everything could create a scenario in my head that wasn't true. It showed up at work in that I was hyper anxious in meetings with other people, and I would just talk right over them. I was desperate to get my word in. It isn't a great thing when you do that in the office. And I would appear very flustered. And eventually that created a full-blown panic attack in a lobby in my new workplace. And all I can say is it was like an out of body experience. It was horrific. I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding. And to this day, I have no idea what came out of my mouth. I have no idea what I said to my new marketing director. He sort of just looked at me and he said, have you run up the stairs to get to work? Maybe you need to sit down. And I was like, oh, God, I must be crazy or something. It was a very shocking moment and a very frightening moment because I felt completely out of control of my life and how I was behaving.
I can hear how painful that must have been for you.
You're a senior person. I was fairly new in that job, new in that company. He was a new marketing director. He was very, senior. He was quite a difficult person. I won't deny that one to work with, but my anxiety didn't make that better. And I think he must have just labeled me as some sort of crazy midlife woman. And that was not a good foot to start a relationship on, or to be able to reverse people's first impressions of you.
Absolutely. So how did you connect the anxiety to menopause?
Well, a lot later, quite a lot of years later, when I was writing my book, I interviewed hundreds of women and I began to see that this was a pattern. Women talked about this. I researched it more and began to realize this is the issues that women are having. And this is related to changes in our hormones that creates all this imbalance in our brains. And so then I was thinking, oh, well, the way I have felt, wow, that's totally related to my menopause. And then layer on top of that a lot of stress. It's not surprising that it eventually came out.
And it sounds by talking about it, it really helped to reduce the anxiety.
Definitely. I think talking about it, addressing it, meeting it, and realizing that I wasn't alone, that I was one of millions of women around the world who are experiencing this. I mean, now we know it's probably the number one issue that women have that affects the quality of their lives.
The fact that you host a show about that in your book, it really brings light to menopause and anxiety so people don't have to feel alone.
And I think this ability now to talk about our anxiety, to say, this is how I feel. That's the first step to being able to say, well, how can I work through it? And then you find that the approaches are there for you, whether that's mindfulness, whether that's cognitive therapy. I mean, I think people choose the direction that's right for them, but then you've got the ability to take control. You've got a bit of a toolkit to help you. And now, because I've also coached a lot of women who have anxiety, I can teach them how we can stop it in its tracks, how you can feel it coming, how you know the situations and the people that bring it on. And suddenly we're back in the driving seat and we're not crazy. We're just menopausal.
Awareness is the key first step to understanding what's going on, and it allows us to make conscious choices.
Totally agree. We have to start with being aware of our thoughts, how they rush from one to another, and the kind of style we have. So we have different styles of reacting to thoughts, and knowing what your preferred style is. I mean, are you a what if huge scenario? Are you a blame it on other people? Then we have the tools to work with that. Once we're aware of how we talk to ourselves, we can break through this.
Absolutely. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about what beliefs did you have to shift in order to be able to move forward. And so it's the awareness of how we think, how we feel in order to be able to take those steps.
Everything is about our thoughts about ourselves and the situations we find ourselves, what we believe. And I think, like myself, lots of other people as well, we don't think we're good enough. Women are very good at that scenario. I'm not good enough. When something goes wrong, it's all my fault. And then all the stories about people don't like me, I'm never going to succeed at this job, all that kind of racing goes ahead. And it starts with how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the way we show up, how we feel about what we think other people think about us, all of that influences our anxiety and the level to which it escalates.
Absolutely. And the acceptance part is getting rid of all those stories that you just mentioned. So how would you say acceptance played a part in your healing?
Acceptance played a huge part of my healing. First, that I was able to accept that I was good enough, that I learned how to love myself. I mean, I don't think that I really loved myself. I was very hard on myself. And so accepting that actually I was much better at everything. In fact, I was brilliant at everything that I do, if I would say that. That's a bit arrogant, but I would say I was really good at my job. I think I've been a fantastic mother to my son. Even all those thoughts said in my head that I wasn't, I was. And I had to step over that big hurdle. And all of that started with learning to love myself. And that begins with awareness. It begins with being more mindful of the way you think and feel.
And you were in corporate and achieving everything you wanted to achieve, and then accepting this connection between menopause and your anxiety. All of a sudden those stories do start to exasperate. So it's completely understandable that you would be feeling that way. You're like, what's going on here? What happened?
What's going on with me? Why am I like this? And I think it was the effect on other people. I mean, my son picked it up. Obviously my colleagues were picking it up. My bosses were picking it up. And it was becoming an issue. It was standing in the way of me being able to live the life that I wanted to. And I mean, we don't even talk about trying to have a relationship with someone, because my anxiety destroyed every possible relationship I tried to be in.
That's understandable too. You had so many things going on, the emotions involved, the hormones involved, and the transition from corporate to entrepreneurship, divorce. So there's a lot of moving factors there.
And I think that is part of acknowledging that sometimes when you have so much going on in your life and your body's changing and the world around you is changing, then you have to say it's okay to not always be okay every day, that you have to have time to regroup and pause and celebrate that some of the things I did were amazing. Stop and say, actually, when you're going through this, you're amazing and you're being the best you can be every single day.
I agree 100% with you. If we celebrated ourselves a little bit more often, I mean daily, then we would actually be able to reflect on, what did we do today, and have that opportunity to see those positive aspects of ourselves, because we're all always on autopilot, go, 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 without appreciating what we were able to accomplish. And sometimes that could just be getting out of bed in the morning. Those are important things, because that allows us to move forward in our action.
And I would say to people who are watching this, at the end of the day, yes, write down the things you're grateful for. That's really important. But write down the 3 things in your day that went well. Even if it was, I got out of bed, I took a walk, I made my bed, small things like that, is I actually did some things that went well. Of course, sometimes we're celebrating the bigger things, but everything that worked for you is reinforcing that you are okay, you're in control, and you are being absolutely the best you're showing up for that.
Yes, and just knowing that each day we are doing the best that we can do, hopefully takes away some of that stress of what you think you should be doing.
That word that shouldn't be allowed to be there. And I think anxiety is very much about having those words like should, must, ought, got, and they don't generate a positive response, because we feel forced, we push to get there. If we have anxiety, that just dials it up. So instead, using words like I prefer or I would like to, so much better to talk to ourselves like that.
when we say I choose to, the power is back into our own hands. We're not giving away our power.
I think owning your power, owning where you are, being aware of where you are, those are the absolute pillars to taking steps to managing anxiety, and even making it go away, because I don't feel anxious now. Those things don't happen to me anymore. They are gone. And if I ever can feel anything coming, I can pretty much manage it, nip it in the bud, rather than being driven around by my anxiety.
How did you break through those fears in order to take action?
A lot of it was the work that I did in training to become a mindfulness teacher. And I would say that that 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course that people might know as MBSR was so foundational in that. To go to that place that was in the next suburb where I lived and didn't even know it was there, and to go to open ground, and to, as it's called, and to sit with the other people and to know I wasn't alone, to do the practices. And I think part of it was that I committed. I showed up with a clear intention that I was going to work through this, that I was going to do the mindfulness practices as Timothea, who was a teacher, told us to do, or instruct, or gave us suggestions to do. And by doing those, by the meditation and mindfulness practices I did every day for 8 whole weeks, I saw that change happen. By the 4th week, I was on a different path and I felt much more in control.
So the commitment that you made, the intention that you made brought you to a place where, as you said, you don't even feel anxiety anymore. However, if you should feel anything coming on, you have the tools.
And those tools are really very simple. Sometimes we just have to stop and be in the present moment. And then we can't think about pressing our feet in the ground and focusing on the body. And the head can't do its thing. It can't do 2 things at once. That I have learned. Your brain does one thing at a time, even though it does it very quickly in nanoseconds. So when we break the thought patterns, when we do simple mindfulness practices that are maybe just focusing on the breath, pressing your feet on the floor, whatever, we give ourselves a moment to regroup, to step back, and then to say, hang on a minute, is what I'm thinking really true? What are you thinking, Clarissa? What's going on in there? And if it's a little inner voice, you can say, well, thank you. You're not very helpful right now. I can hear you, but I don't need you. And so there we are, able to be more in control. And that's everything about anxiety, is putting yourself back in the driver's seat.
Absolutely. And when you are 100% present in the moment, you feel more connected. So with that connection, you can sort of lean into, what am I feeling? What am I thinking that I'm feeling this way? Taking those deep breaths, and it gives you that opportunity to pause, and instead of reacting to whatever is coming up, we have that choice to respond.
And that's the difference. And then you can always sort of write down things about your thoughts. You can write down, well, I'm thinking this. Is it true? Is it really true? And I get people to do the evidence. Sometimes I would say to myself things like, well, would it stand up in a court of law if I actually said these things? Are they really that true? And if you can't say, I can absolutely say this is true, and I would swear on the Bible that it's true, then it's not a true thought. It's not a true message in my head. It's just my thoughts, and thoughts aren't real, and they're not facts, even the ones that say they are.
That allows us to break through from those stories, those beliefs, and move forward.
You're absolutely right there, Lee. When we actually own the story, we own whether it's true or not, and we're here and present, then we're always responding, not reacting. We're human, we can't help to react, it's natural, but we are learning to control, to have perspective on things. That's the biggest thing. So when I can be like a giraffe in the savannah and I look down and I see my thoughts twirling around, then I'm like, they're not me, they're my thoughts, and I can be distance from them. I have a perspective, I have a choice how I'd like to move forward. And I think when we learn to do that, to interrupt these crazy thoughts in our heads that are leading to more and more thoughts, when we can stop them and look at them and question them. We are on a journey to being in control, and that's what all of this is about.
And just knowing that the outcome is that that's where you gain ultimate control, I think that is a wonderful takeaway. And it's led you to your next chapter, which is full of peace and calm. I can feel that as I'm speaking with you. And I think that's a great one. Thank you. I think it's a very important message.
And I would say to any woman that was out there, you know, anxiety isn't your fault. Your hormones do some of that together with your situation, but we can all turn the corner. I really would say that. So thank you, Lea, for this opportunity to speak about my anxiety and to share some of my experiences with other people, men and women, who are going through this.
Well, I want to thank you, and I really appreciate you being here and sharing your experiences and your wisdom with us. I find it's extremely helpful, and we all need to hear those messages. So thank you very much. And I would like to thank all of our viewers for being here, and we look forward to sharing the space with you next time. Thank you.